of River Falls Municipal Utility Advisory Board meeting for Monday, August 19th, 2024. Lene, can we start with a roll call, please?
Bartles,
Present.
York,
Present.
Carroll, Gardner,
Present.
Klecker,
Here.
Lick,
Present.
Toom.
Here.
All right. Looking for an approval of the minutes from the UAB meeting on June 17th. I need a motion.
Move approval.
I second.
All right. I've got Tim with a motion, Amber seconding. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. All right. This is the portion of the meeting for public comment. If anyone from the public would like to come up, please state your name, address, and sign in, please. Take it away, Bill.
I have signed in. I don't have a half hour to speak about the utilities. If you had Diane O'Dean here, she would be timing it to 2 minutes. And usually I beat her by about 5 seconds. But this evening, I just came tonight to congratulate you on your stewardship of the Junction Falls Hydro Dam and Lake George. As we continue to expand our understanding of the importance of sustainability in the future of the world we are leaving our children and our grandchildren, our local production of over 1 million kilowatt hours of renewable electricity by the Junction Falls Dam and Hydro continues by far to be our largest local source of renewable energy. And Lake George, unique in the Kitty watershed, expands our area biodiversity. Thank you for your continuing responsible stewardship of the significant sustainability feature of our community, represented by our Junction Falls Dam, Hydro, and Lake George. Continue to support and expand this local commitment to sustainability. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, acknowledgement of the meeting minutes from the West Central Biosolids Facility Commission, June 20, 2024. Can I get a motion?
Oh, motion. Second.
All right. All those, any further discussion? See no discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And motion passes. Kevin, you're up. We're moving on to reports.
Yeah, so we have myself and City Engineer Todd McCluskey are going to give a little update on the wastewater treatment plant facility, the dryer project, and the groundwater availability study that we invested in here a few months ago to talk about our aquifer situation. Then a few little other pieces of maybe information you might find interesting. So Todd and I are going to kind of ham and egg this thing, and I think I'm up first. So how about that? Even have slides to go with this tonight. You folks had the foresight to assist our staff in investing in a $9.5 million dryer project that's being constructed at our current wastewater treatment facility. Many of you visited that facility. And in the lower left corner of this picture right here, you can see where the dryer building is being constructed. This picture is probably 6 weeks ago, and I'll just kind of walk you through the process and pop through a few of these pictures and show you where we're at today. It's made quite a bit of progress. And before I go through it, I want to say the progress is on schedule and on budget. So we had one minor little change order that I'm negotiating ourselves out of for about $2,300. So it was for which isn't bad. It was one on their water meter as a bypass pipe that was required that wasn't included. And I know Dean and his group out there have unloaded, I think, 6 trucks that have come in for Waukesha construction. And we said, hey, how about a little something for the effort? We'll trade you up straight up for the $2,300. So I think we might get that through. So there it is, pouring some concrete, foundation, and pillars. Walls are going up. So part of the walls are the cement block wall, and many of it's a steel structure. Here, this is the area that the dryer is going to sit in. So the dryer will take up about half of this space here, And then there'll be, rest of the space will be for an additional dryer someday, should we need that down the road. And here we are with a recent picture of the steel structures going up. And there's the most recent picture taken. I think that might have been this morning, actually. So steel frame is in. This is a 3-story high building. It's a pretty high building. The silo will sit, I think, about 6 feet above this building. So it is a big building, and it's all coming along well. And the steel's painted, and it's going to be going on. And oh, there's another picture of that. And there we go. So if you get a chance, if you want to drive in there and see Dean and get a hard head on, and he can maybe show you around if you're interested, or you can just drive in the gate and take a look. But the project's coming along well. It should be enclosed relatively soon. They'll get that steel in there very quickly. So with that, just to keep this moving along, we'll turn it over and to Mr. Todd McCluskey, our city engineer, to talk about sustainable groundwater resources available in River Falls, and hopefully answer some of Chris's questions as well that he had earlier today.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me here tonight. We're going to talk about the results of a recently completed groundwater availability study, which we had commissioned to estimate sustainable groundwater resources available to our community, not just for today and tomorrow, but we kind of are looking at this as a 50 or a 100-year look at how we will serve this community with water for now and future generations. So before we start talking too in depth, just a little bit of background about our water system. We have 5 groundwater drinking wells. All of the water that we supply to our customers in the city comes from bedrock, comes from groundwater. Those 5 wells range in depth from 375 to 550 feet below the ground surface. And those wells pump into 3 water towers and the Mound Reservoir, where water is then sent out to our customers through the collection system. In general, those 5 wells draw from 3 distinct geologic formations. Up top is the St. Peter Sandstone. That's very, very high up in our community. Thinking up in Highview Meadows, well 6 that's up there probably does draw some groundwater from the St. Peter Sandstone. Below the St. Peter Sandstone is the Prairie du Chien Formation, which is a dolomite and sandstone formation, really similar to the St. Peter Sandstone. And below the St. Peter Sandstone is the Jordan Formation, which is a sandstone formation. So if we look at this geologic cross-section, so this is from the Wisconsin Geologic and Natural History Survey. If you look at the very, very top, the darker blue, that's the St. Peter Formation. That's the St. Peter Sandstone. Well 6 has some well exposed to the St. Peter Formation. Below that is the Prairie du Chien group. And then below that is the Jordan Formation. Below the Jordan Formation, and this is really important to understand our aquifers, below the Jordan Formation is what's called the St. Lawrence Formation. The St. Lawrence Formation is a really, really tight, fine-grained sandstone, dolomite sandstone. Water doesn't really move through the St. Lawrence. So the bottom of the Jordan Formation or the top of the St. Lawrence Formation is kind of like the bottom of the bathtub. Once groundwater starts moving down, it hits the bottom of the Jordan Formation and it doesn't really go any further. So I'll use this word in a few slides, but consider the bottom of the Jordan Formation the bottom of the bathtub. Our water doesn't go below that. So this crudely drawn red line kind of represents the extent of where we get water within our aquifers. And really, before we understand how that's where it is, but to really understand how water moves through there, we have to understand how it gets there. And so remember, this is our representation of our aquifer, this red blob here. The only way that water recharges our aquifers is through rain. And that is rain that falls within our recharge area. The recharge area is really closely aligned with the Kinnickinnic River. So you can see the Area to the north is the main branch of the Kinney. Further south is the recharge area associated with the South Fork, and then below that is the Rocky branch of the Kinnickinnic River. In total, that's about 93 square miles. So rain that lands in those 93 square miles infiltrates through the soil and the dirt, and then it hits this bedrock, and then some of it keeps moving down until it gets sucked out by our wells. But we do know that of the rain that falls on the ground, not very much of it actually gets down into the groundwater. Not all of it infiltrates or percolates down into the groundwater. A lot of it runs off as stormwater. So in an average year, and this is a 50-year average, we can expect about 31 inches of rain. And of those 31 inches of rain, about 8.1 will make it down into the aquifers and be counted as recharge, what we call groundwater recharge. And then moving down to the 40-year drought, we can expect 17 inches of rainfall in a 40-year drought. So proportionately, that means during the 40-year drought, we can only expect about 4.4 inches of groundwater recharge across those 93 square miles. So kind of crudely here, we get rain. Some of that rain becomes stormwater runoff and it heads down to the Mississippi River, Gulf of Mexico, it's gone. Some of that rain will infiltrate into soil and then ultimately into the bedrock and continue to recharge our aquifer. But what we really want to know is what the groundwater surplus is. What can we pump out of the ground without causing any negative effects? Some negative effects would be a large lowering of the groundwater table that would really negatively affect the water quality of the Kinnickinnic River. So to calculate the groundwater surplus, we calculate the groundwater recharge, which is how many inches per year of rainfall infiltrates into the bedrock. Then we subtract withdrawal. So withdrawal is how much do we use? What does the city of River Falls pump out of the ground every year? And then the Kinnickinnic River base flow. So I told you that the bottom of the Jordan Formation is kind of the bottom of the bathtub. Once rainfall falls in that 93 square mile area, it fills up the aquifer, and then it fills up the loose dirt and soil on top of the aquifer, and it has to go somewhere, and it goes out the Kinnickinnic River. So that's why we consider the base flow of the Kinnickinnic River to be a groundwater drain. So the water level of the Kinnickinnic River, the base flow water level of the Kinnickinnic River is the groundwater table, so south of town. So groundwater withdrawal, that's relatively easy to calculate. We keep really good records of how much we pump out of the ground. There are some other high capacity well users within our groundwater recharge area that were also accounted for when we put together this model. And then the Kinnickinnic River base flow, that is a measured thing. There's stream gauges, and so that data comes directly from the stream gauging data. The groundwater withdrawal number, the city of River Falls, we pump about 1.3 million gallons per day. The private wells I mentioned that are also in our recharge area pump about 0.13 million gallons per day. And then there are some other smaller residential commercial wells that are outside of our corporate limits, but there was an allowance made for them, but they are relatively insignificant. And then the Kinnickinnic River base flow, it is a groundwater drain. Bathtub fills up, it's got to go somewhere, so it goes down the Kinney. And the estimated base flow of the Kinnickinnic River is 23 million gallons per day. So, yeah.
So you're figuring out of that aquifer, we're draining 23 million gallons a day through the Kinnickinnic River, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. It's a big number. Yeah, it's a lot of water. 23 million gallons it's a lot of water when we use 1.3 million gallons per day.
So the assumption here, so if we didn't use 1.3 million gallons a day, at some point in time, that would just go down the river?
Correct. Correct. Yep, that's our withdrawal number, and if our withdrawal was 0, that would move the, that would move the number, that would change the base flow number.
Because because of how it outflows to the river, it can't get any higher.
It can't get much
Can't
higher.
get much higher.
Right.
And then how, this is pretty interesting, in a way. I didn't realize it could be this simple. But, the 93 square miles, is that more represented, that is a representation of the actual bathtub area? Or is it the topographical of what runs off
It's
in other directions?
that. It's kind of, it's really close. So the watershed, if a drop of water lands on anywhere on the land and it flows into the Kinnickinnick River,
Right.
that's part of the Kinnickinnick River watershed. The recharge area is really closely related to the watershed. It's not exact. The watershed for the Kinney is quite a bit bigger than 93 square miles for us.
Yeah.
And that's a point of conservancy that the people who wrote this report included
Okay.
to make sure that.
But these
We don't get
aquifers
around.
do not travel past that boundary line?
Correct. They really don't. They fill up and then they leave via, they flow into the Kinnickinnick River. I mean, I mean, I say bathtub with an overflow, but it's kind of continually along the length of the Kinnickinnick
Right,
River. So yeah, this stuff it's honestly not something that I get to do very often. It's really, really cool and interesting to learn some newer stuff. But really, when you do boil it down, the math it's straightforward. It's pretty, like, when I saw this report come back, I'm like, that's all you guys did? Like, but I mean, it does make sense when you start looking at it.
Todd, a question. What impact would be, asphalt, concrete, any of that type of development on your model?
So in this model, I told you our watershed or our recharge area is 93 square miles. For this model, the company that wrote it excluded about 10 square miles to account for impervious areas. So we have a 93 square mile recharge area. We only used 83 square miles to calculate the groundwater recharge number. But yes, the more impervious area we have, the less opportunities those little drops of rain have to get down into the groundwater. And, they hit asphalt and they'll run off into the river. So they'll become stormwater and that water molecule will be long gone.
Okay.
So the more impervious area a recharge area has, the less recharge we can expect. We are fortunate, the city of River Falls is fortunate that we have a pretty strong stormwater ordinance requiring infiltration. So we're inside our corporate limits. That extra 10 miles of buffer that was built in is another level of conservancy that was built into these numbers. But outside of the corporate limits, we don't have very much influence on what other governments are requiring for infiltration on some of their development sites.
And Todd, maybe you're gonna hit on that a little bit, but if you're looking for vulnerability, I mean, that would be the vulnerability in the area of that recharge area that's out of our control.
Yeah, we really don't have a ton of control about what happens up in the 94 corridor because our recharge area extends about to I-94. So I guess kind of to summarize, the groundwater surplus is the groundwater recharge, which is based on how much rain we get and how much of that rain gets into the ground, minus the withdrawal, so minus how much we use, and then minus the base flow of the Kinnickinnick River. In the 50-year average rainfall, so 30 inches, we can expect a groundwater surplus of about 6.88 million gallons per day, which is compared to our average of 1.3 million gallons per day current usage, it's significant. And even moving down to the 40-year drought, which what did I say was 14 inches of rain per year, we can expect 2.84 a surplus of 2.84 million gallons per day, which is about 1 billion gallons per year. So really the meat of this report boils down to this one sentence that I put up there, is that during the 40-year drought, there is sufficient groundwater to support existing needs, protect the environment with an additional 1 billion gallons per year of groundwater surplus. So my takeaways from this study are that we're lucky. I mean, we are really fortunate to be well positioned to serve our customers and protect the environment. Like I said, our groundwater recharge is solely from rain. So what we do at the surface will ultimately impact the water quality as it gets down into the aquifer. So we should continue to support watershed protection in our drainage area, our recharge area. Currently, we're doing that through our stormwater permit by being a member of the Rainier Rivers organization, which is an outreach education organization talking about best management practices for stormwater. We should continue to maintain our strong stormwater ordinance, control as much as we can within our corporate limits. And then as our water use continues to increase, which it will, we're a growing community, we should work towards identifying future well sites that meet some pretty stringent DNR requirements and also align with our system needs. So with that, I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, thanks for listening to me. It's really super interesting stuff.
I did have a question. What was the impetus of the study? Who did the study? What did it cost?
Good question. The impetus of the study was to set a baseline. We wanted to really understand what's happening underground, especially with this potential growth that's happening. I mean, it's not potential, it is happening. The growth that we're seeing in the community right now, as we look to bring on another well, what's the impact of the next well to our aquifer? So we wanted to be able to answer questions with some good background information. And the study was performed by it's a consulting firm named Gannett Fleming. They're out on the East Coast. These types of reports are really quite common out on the East Coast and the West Coast where water resources are more scarce. They're not done in the Midwest very often because honestly, we have really good groundwater resources in Wisconsin. And the cost of this study, I off the top of my head, I think it was around $18,000, maybe 20. It's somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah. Internally, we were, talking about aquifers and aquifer levels, and I watched those over the years. We have gauges in these aquifers, and I see them go down in the summer sometimes, and I see them replenish. And kind of anecdotally, I know they've always been replenishing and well, but this is a much bigger look at our aquifers and aquifer areas. So we took the anecdotal information and then more solidified it with a professional engineer that took a much broader look at it, and it kind of reinforced what we were assuming we knew, but it's pretty positive.
Yeah, I feel really good about supporting the community with clean water for now, and really, I mean, I'll be ashes in the wind when our groundwater runs out, and so it's really a good feeling to make sure that 50 years from now we're taking care of the future generations.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to continue to be good stewards of our water, but it's kind of reassuring to know that we're not draining our aquifer levels down. So, and this is good for the community too. So when you folks are all ambassadors, of our utilities, and now and when someone asks you about water levels and where we get our water, so fortunate to be drawing from the 3 aquifers, plenty of groundwater. They are recharging, so I think it's just good contextual information for the community to have. So let's talk about PFAS. So we kind of tied a few things together. So this ends up being, so we said, hey, we have this water aquifer report. So then we went to a little wastewater information, talk a little PFAS, talk about our water wastewater utilities. So PFAS update, you folks know last year I reported that we had no detect on PFAS. So you said you might want to wonder or have forgotten, like, how did we get How did we get those no detect results? Well, we were required to do one round of samples for the EPA in 2023. One round is each well. So we had to go to each well and test. And then we had to do 3 rounds of sampling for the DNR in 2023. And we sampled each well for each round of sampling. And we had no detection. We're only required to sample 1 time per year for the DNR and don't have to do any more tests for the EPA until further notice. So because of the no detects, we're sitting real good and we can have some confidence in our water supply. So I thought I'd just reiterate again, that's good contextual information for the public as you hear about all these communities having issues with PFAS and no detect. And we're in parts per trillion now, so it's very minuscule amounts. And I'm just going to knock on wood that we continue down that line, but we don't have any today, so hopefully that continues. A question?
I do have a question, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this
Maybe.
because it's maybe a little out there. With our communities to the west of us, whether you're Woodbury, Cottage Grove, obviously, how does the St. Croix River affect that aquifer in regards to they have PFAS problems? They're going to spend what $400 million in Woodbury to build a treatment plant.
Right.
You know, how does the St. Croix River stop that groundwater, knowing these formations, you know, extend over states? They're huge.
Right. I think Todd kind of touched on that about the bathtub economics there, that they might be in a different portion outside of our tub. Go, Todd, if you would like to maybe take that.
Yeah, that's a good question and a valid concern. If you go back to the cross section here, going back down to the Jordan Formation, the Jordan Sandstone, you can see all of everything tips to the west. I don't see a world where groundwater from the west side of the St. Croix River can make it into our portions of the Prairie du Chien and the Jordan Formation sandstone. So I think we're pretty safe from what's happening in the East Metro. Let me get back to where you were.
PFAS right there. Yeah, thanks, Todd. Yeah, so just the way things are sloping is maybe the same under. So water used in July. So again, our utility gets its revenue, a lot of its revenues, not all of it, but some of its revenues off of water consumption. I just thought this was interesting. I'll go back to the bottom part here. June of 2023, very dry year. We averaged 2.25 million gallons per day in our community. And like we said, we average about 1.3. And in June of 2024, we were just below the 1.3, actually at 1.2. And for those of you that have sprinkler systems, and I have a manual sprinkler system, there just wasn't much watering going on in June this year, evidenced by how much water was consumed in the city of River Falls. Moving on to July, still pretty wet this year. 23, we had almost 1.7 million gallons per day, and this year, right at that 1.3. So very wet summer and not a lot of irrigation. I suppose some people that have automatic systems are still running them, but overall, a lot less water consumed in 24, and you're probably going to get those aquifers recharged back to the last presentation. Power usage, again, so I'm a little bit all over the board here, but this is pretty Kevin-ish, being a little bit all over the board, I guess. But in June, having it be a temperate year in 24, we used 892,893 kilowatt hours compared to 986 in 23. So the temperate year, you know, our power bill was a lot less, but we also sold a lot less power in June of 24. The good news is for Bill William Hansen in the crowd here. So hydros, with that wet year, we produced a lot more electricity out of our Junction Falls hydro in 24 versus what we did in 23 because the river's flowing. So 121,529 kilowatt hours compared to 88,000 last year. So for the hydro fans, that's a wet year. You produce more electricity from hydros. Some of you may have seen some of are just always red fire hydrants are getting some new colors on them. And these colors are gallons per minute flow indicators. So when if there's a fire and the fire department pulls up, these colors will be coordinated with how many gallons per minute flow out of a hydrant. So they know that. We'll have to look at a map. So we've been painting some caps, different colors to show the different flow rates from our hydrants. So again, if a neighbor says, how come these hydrants are different colors? That is the reason why. I believe they're most likely standard colors across the industry. Yeah, so town to town. Anybody has driven out to Man Valley recently? This is the path that's going to be paved soon that goes all the way through Man Valley. And these are our new streetlights that are along the new bike path that'll be paved sometime, I guess, in the next month or 6 weeks, Todd, potentially. 2 months. So we're waiting on our paving company to coordinate that and find a nice dry time where they get out there and pave that path. And I'm really impressed with these. These are our new lights along the roads with the city logo and Signa inside that. And I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm just telling you, if you drive out there along those new streets and you see these new lights with those insignias in them, in our logo, it feels like you've really arrived somewhere. Here you've arrived out in Man Valley, but it's different than anything you've seen. But when you pull in there, you think, gosh, I am somewhere. Where am I? It's Man Valley, and it's really a place-making type light in there. It's pretty cool, and we even kind of get crazy now and think, well, these blue ones maybe are for corporate parks, and maybe we have yellow ones for parks and red ones for downtown someday, right? Over the next 20 years as this thing builds out. So placemaking in the lights. So there you have it. Thank you very much. You have any other further questions? I thought I'd just give you a little bit of the groundwater update, a few utility snapshot updates. I have a few more things for you too when we get to reports, but that's what I have for now. Are there any questions? Thanks, Chris. I forget my glasses. I'm ready. I'm back in my chair. Financial report. Let's do that. So let's go to page 48 in your packet, the electrical. Again, we've sold a lot. We've sold less electricity this year than we have in the past, but we're still total net 671,000 in the plus for electric on page 48. That's good. It's compared to 776 last year, but still we're sitting good there. For water, we're 381,000 in the plus compared to 339 from last year. So actually, we're doing better in water this year. Some of that maybe is recouped through development fees. It didn't have to be so, because it wasn't from water sales. And then wastewater, again, doing really well there. We're plus $1 million in wastewater. So all the utilities are sitting in a good financial position. And when next time when our finance director comes, we can get into the weeds a little bit more and get into a little deeper explanation. So, but financially, the utilities are all doing well. Rate cases have been submitted for electric and water, and they're in the PSC's hands. And I think some questions are already coming back to the utilities on those. So. And there'll be a notice going out in the October newsletter or bill, September billing. So in the September bill, all customers, including yourselves, are going to get a notice about the submitted rate changes that have been submitted to the PSC. So you'll see that in there. And it gives a potential dollar amount impact on a residential customer. I think water was $7 and some change, and electric 9 something, I believe. Yeah. So anyway, that is in that letter. So the percentages are in there, which look more drastic than but the dollar amounts that are impact are also in there. So that's coming. You can look for that. It's from Josh and I. So I have that. So that's what I have on the financial report. Utility dashboards. I did have one thing in here. What I had something. Oh, we got to on page 57 of your packet. We hit 17% participation rate in the renewable energy block program. So Our customer service staff up front is still asking, and people are still buying. And for the first time, 17% of our customers are voluntarily purchasing green energy blocks in the city of River Falls. So that's a new milestone. Going to keep us in the upper end of the rankings. We're number 2 in the country right now, and numbers like that will most likely keep us there. Chris, I have a few other announcements I'd like to pass along and share, if you don't mind, as we get into the monthly report here. So Hodgman Drainage, which you might consider Hodgman Boring Company, that they did our boring for electric company boring for us. We're actually called Hodgman Drainage, even though they're boring. And they did the stuff along Powell Avenue, 3-phase conduits out there. And then also they did, let me see, Woodridge. So in that little subdivision that's really outside the city that we serve electricity to, the cable replacement program, they went in and did all that work in there as well. Wayne Cyberling is very satisfied with Hodgman. They did a great job for us, communicated very well, and their work is done and they're already out of town. So Hodgman went very well. A few months ago, you guys approved a 3-reel turret that was scheduled to be delivered in September. It's not here yet, and Wayne's optimistic it could be here in September. We said it may leak into October. So that 3-reel cable turret is still on its way. We also, over the last, what month are we now? 8 already? I guess it's 8 months ago, we got a new locating service, B&M Locating, and we've been very satisfied with them all the way across the board. They've been very responsive. Their accuracy rates are up good. They're not falling behind, so we're very satisfied, and they were that low bidder, if you can remember that. And it was actually less than we were paying the previous year, and we've been very satisfied with B&M Locating. Let me see. Oh, we hired a new journeyman lineman, a little succession planning going on, and we're anticipating some retirements potentially in the electric department. And so we went out and got in front of that just by a little bit. And we actually interviewed 3 journeyman linemen. I'm always pessimistic about that, like they're hard to find because people get ingrained in where they are. But we found Jeremy, and Jeremy is going to start here from Colorado. He's an Eastern Colorado person, so I think in his bio today he sent that up from Eastern Colorado where it's not that pretty or something like that. So he'll be here. He had a picture of him and his wife and his 2 kids, and they'll be moving to Wisconsin. So we're excited to have Jeremy starting in early September 9th, I believe, something like that. Oh, here's some exciting news. We got our $1.6 million grant for the West Central Wisconsin Biosolids. So we had one more round of jumping through some fiery rings. We had to go through what was it called? The ASAP system, some new system that we weren't aware of in ID Me. So myself, Scott Simpson, finance director, and myself had to almost give blood. That was one step away from that, and get into the system along with West Central Biosolids and our bankers. And the money was released last week. So we have $1.6 million sitting in the bank, and it's going to be going over to West Central Biosolids next week. After we put it in the city council packet on expenditures. So West Central Biosolids did pay River Falls $10,000 for handling that situation. That was pretty nice of them to do that, but we had some stuff on our end that we did, so including applying for that grant about 2.5 years ago. So the money's there. That project is 99% complete. I think they're going to have a picnic out there late next month. I think Linnea is coordinating with Randy Lindquist from West Central Biosolids, and we'll invite all of you if you want to come over to Ellsworth, have a hot dog, and see where we were delivering our sludge. That opportunity will be open for you. They do have some new odor control out there, and it doesn't smell as bad as it used to. I'll just say that. So I also want to say thank you for those that helped out at the community appreciation picnic. I told Linnea they've all been good, but this one had a little something extra to it. I really can't put my finger around it, but there were a lot of happy faces, a lot of happy people. It was great to see all of our departments working together. The silos have been broken down, and there's a lot of cooperation amongst all groups. And there's a lot of that inside stuff that nobody sees, that I see that goes on amongst our different areas. It's really cool to see people working together and pulling something like that off. And we have to give a big hats off to Lene for coordinating that in the back end too. She's the driver of that. She's organizing all the meetings ahead of time, making sure the food's ordered and the tables are there. And Ken knows where to put the tents and where to set up the grills. So Lene does a great job. So thank you, Lene. Yeah. And thank you for everybody who helped out with that. Hopefully you had a good time. Oh yeah, uh-huh. Is your mic on? Is your mic on? Is your mic on? Yeah.
And, they were so pleased to be able to talk to us
Uh-huh.
and explain the equipment, and I was very impressed.
Yeah, well, good. We try to coach that up, right? We try to have that culture where people want to be here. They feel like what they're doing matters. They're very proud of what they do, and they take ownership in what they do. And you sense that?
Yep.
Well, good. Well, that's what we're trying to accomplish. It's all, so these organizations, any organization you work in or do, it's all about the people, right? And creating that culture where people can succeed and hopefully deliver good services. So that's what we're trying. Thanks for noticing that, and thanks for being there. What's that? Oh yeah, we had about 1,100 people that came through that day. If you're curious about that. Anything else I'm forgetting, Lene, on my list? Any other questions today, Chris? Anything
Nope,
else?
I was just gonna say thank you to Lene for her efforts putting everything together. And then, Kevin, I do thank you for circling back on some of these projects, whether it's locating the drainage company,
Mhm.
uh,
There's a lot going on.
generators, a lot of stuff
yeah.
we've done that once you pass it, you sort of forget about it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even let me hit on that one. You just brought one up, I forgot too. So the generator that you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on at the wastewater treatment plant, that pad for that was just poured last week, and the generator's coming here in a couple weeks.
Okay,
So
great.
there you go.
But I think it's important that we do follow up on these things. We approve, but then we need to know, hey, did we make the right decision? Was it the right company? Was it the right contract? Just as moving forward, I think that's really important for board members to have that information when they look at new things. Because certainly there's things that sometimes you don't even know what you don't know unless you ask questions later. So thank you for bringing that up and again, and circling back with
No,
it.
I like it when people are interested. So you may have noticed in front of the armory today, we removed, I think, 3 of those giant ash trees in front of the armory if you get down Division Street. So we had our electric line clearance distribution company come and fall those into the road because they were near high power line. So we couldn't have just anybody trim those down. So our company that does all of our line clearance came and did that. And then our public works people said, don't hire anybody to pick that up. We'll do it. So then public works got involved and cut them up and got them out of there today. So the road was closed for a few hours while they cut those down. And then we got that cleared out. Another example of how people are working together. It would have been very easy for public works to say, we're not doing that. But they said, nah, don't hire anybody. We'll do it. So those are out of there as well. And Erica and I and our new marketing person and IT person that does editing and things like that, we're working on some communications for ash trees. I know a lot of our communities wondering, like, what's happening with the ash trees? When's mine going to be cut down? And so we are working on some communication that we want to do with the public on that because people don't really know what's happening. And we do have a plan, but we have to communicate the plan. So I'm working on that.
Does that include replacement? I mean,
Yes. And well, I want to talk about all of that, like even marking the trees and letting people know what year they might come down and then how we're going to replace the trees and what opportunities are there for that and stump grinding and how we seed it. And all, I mean, there's so many things. We have about 1,100 ash trees to take down. And I think from the budget perspective, I think we want to condense that and really take a big swipe at it next year now. So that wasn't in the original plan up until about 2 weeks ago, but I think we're gonna go for it next year. So, but we're gonna communicate that. SciTech? Oh yeah, some of us toured the SciTech building. So that day, and a bunch of you came and got a chance to tour that. That's quite an impressive building. I mean, when you get in there on the inside, it's pretty unbelievable actually that what goes into making that building. It's an enormous building. It's going to be a huge addition to that university, and it's going to be impactful. So, that's all I have, Chris.
adjournment.
Second.
This meeting's adjourned.